This is the Chris Project, where we discuss mental wellness, self-awareness, and mindset with entrepreneurs and experts. Set your perceived ideas and biases aside, and let's go on our journey for yourself, for your family, for the world.
Welcome to another episode of The Chris Project. I am your host, Christian Brim. Joining me today is Brandon Falcon of Falconics. Welcome, Brandon.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So why don't you give the listeners an idea of who Brandon is and maybe what brought him to this point in his life?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the fun part of that is I think, at least for myself, I'm very self-aware, and Brandon's always learning, Brandon. But yeah, so as business owner, founder of my own company, kind of fell on that right out of high school and kind of just realized I liked helping people. Didn't really know what that looked like at the time. So I've had many iterations over the years, like most 18-year-olds straight out of high school. Um, Grew up half my life, or half my adult life as homeschooler. So from that, I feel like I learned a lot of important elements of being self-aware, learning just kind of where you fit into the world, not necessarily going through a formalized structure that I think a lot of the schooling system had. So that kind of opened up my adult world later on, that there might be superpowers in some of this.
Yes.
Fast forwarding a little bit more into more of the adult life, avid traveler. My wife and I travel 6 months out of the year, RVing across the country.
Nice.
Been to every state in the continental United States. Been to Mexico. Been to half of Canada. Avid traveler, avid outdoorsman. Um, let's see, there's a plethora. Love cooking, love exploring.
Kids?
No children, not yet, but absolutely
I
love
think you
kids.
said children. I'm
Yeah,
not sure what the, yeah.
so I might
Yeah.
have not known children
I don't
yet.
know what that means.
No children
Okay.
yet. um, some point or enough, but yeah.
Very good. And your company, Falconics,
Falconics, you
is
got it.
a marketing agency, correct?
Yep, yep.
Okay.
We started in the marketing agency world. I think as anyone that's technically inclined, I feel like always starts there. Of some sort, started in web design, quickly realized that was not for me, not something I enjoyed. Moved into small business marketing, enjoyed it, loved helping the small businesses, realized it was a lot of stuff to carry other people's baggage too,
Mm,
and kept refining it and growing it. And fast forward to more modern day, we even though we fall under a marketing agency, I don't really even want to consider that anymore. We built something called Empathic Resonance Marketing. We use a deep empathy and understanding of actual people's decision making factors, or why they do what they do, and help guide them to problems our clients solve, without ever pushing sales. We don't believe in sales. We believe in actual genuine connection and rapport. And if you happen to have a good solution, then and solves their problem, people are going to want to buy it. You don't have to sell them it. So a lot of empathy focused marketing.
I think you coined a new phrase. I haven't heard
Thank you.
that one yet. You might want to jump on the copyright, get a trademark out there.
Yeah.
Empathy focused marketing. So that's intriguing because I have another podcast called The Profitable Creative where we
Mm.
discuss creative industries, of which marketing is one. And I've had lots of marketers on, and I have now coined the phrase crackhead energy marketing, which is
Yep.
is
I
what
love it.
which is about like 99% of what I see out
Yep.
there. It sounds like maybe I've already forgotten it. Something empathy marketing, deep
Empathic resonance marketing. We call it
empathic
EMR.
resonance. Okay,
Yep.
empathic resonance marketing
Yep.
sounds like the exact opposite of crackhead marketing.
You named it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. I've been that guy. I'm high energy. Younger me was a lot more. Having both ADHD and dyslexic, or being dyslexic, my brain runs really quickly and all over the place. And yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about because I was that guy for many years.
Well, and it's not even really about the individuals. It's just it actually makes sense in the
Mm,
sense that there's an element of marketing that is like crack.
mm,
It gives you a quick fix. It gives you some feedback loop that makes you feel good, but it's not sustainable, and it at the end of the day may or may not, probably not, really push you towards your long-term goal, right?
yeah.
And so that's kind of why I named it that. But I'm curious, you know, just your brief description of your background. What led you to this empathic resonance marketing model?
Burnout.
Mm,
Um, so, like I mentioned, so I've been in this space for about 14 years, running my own
mm-hmm.
company for 12. I started in the white labeling space. If you have any familiarity in obviously
Sure.
marketing, which obviously you do, we worked for several Fortune 500 agencies, white labeling our organic and paid social services for those companies. At any one moment at that time, we were doing 200 clients at any given moment. It was a bit overwhelming, but uh, I enjoyed it. I enjoy helping people, and that's kind of was my initial understanding. Was like I thought because I liked helping people and I understood technology, I understood high level marketing, that that was where I was meant to be. And until honestly around COVID time, when the world started breaking down and we were losing clients left and right, and again, no fault. It was just the fact of the world was just shutting down. Um, I started realizing that, hey, this might not be the model for me. And I didn't know where to go, where to look. And honestly, burnout was a little bit happening. And around the same time, I was like literally the day that from my state, Florida, went into lockdown was the day I was supposed to get married to my wife. And that blew up on us. And I just felt like a lot of things were just falling apart simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Decided to we kind of had all this wedding money, we got back on insurance, and we're like, you know what, if we can't do anything else, let's go do one thing we both love, is national parks and like just nature. Rented an RV for weeks on end, and went exploring around the country. I'm like, this brings me true happiness, this brings me joy and happiness. So crazy enough, all this boiled down to asking myself and literally just writing it down: what makes me happy, what am I good at doing? And I just made a list of literally everything I could possibly think of. And I just started circling the things I could see common denominators. And then that's when I started to decide during like, about 2021 at this point, what I actually wanted to do going forward. And from what I liked doing and what I was good at doing, I narrowed what my company was going to do that I wanted to do until the day I died. That was my belief, and it still is to this day. I want to do it because I feel like if I genuinely enjoy it and it brings value to the world and it helps others, then I will never have a burnout again. And that was kind of like that shifting moment.
Yeah, I think your journey doesn't sound much different than mine or a lot of the ones that I've heard. That when you start a business, there's for entrepreneurs, there's always excitement in the launch, in the building,
Mm,
in the growth. The entrepreneur usually loses interest whenever it gets into the running, managing part of it. I know in my case, it definitely came to the point where I walked away from my business after, I don't know, 15, 16 years
mm,
because I was burnt out and I didn't like dealing with employees. I didn't like dealing with customers. I just, my passion was gone, that passion to help people. And what I realized was that I had to change
mm,
in order for the business to go further. And that's that work to grow myself was in a lot of ways harder than starting the business. And I understand where people get to a point and they just say, I'm sick of it, I'm done with it, and either sell it, walk away, or just kind of let it run. Like, they'll go find something else to do, and sometimes that's productive and sometimes that's not. So yeah, your story resonates with me. Resonate. So I still didn't get the answer I wanted. So
All good, yeah.
what specifically led you to create the empathetic resonating? I didn't say it
Resonant,
right.
but you got it. You were
Resonant, yeah.
close. Yep, you got it. From that, I realized that was one of I call it superpower internally. That's what we call it. I realized that was one of my superpowers, is that I was able to connect with people in genuine ways. And I know it sounds corny kind of at first when you just high level it, but I realized that was missing in the world of technology. That everybody was wanting to get quick sales, quick transaction, like you were saying, the crack
Crackhead
energy type,
energy.
yeah, exactly, crackhead energy marketing approach. And I'm like, this isn't sustainable. It's not genuine. It doesn't actually make me happy. It feels just very transactional. I'm controlling a number for a product that I don't actually control, or I might not even believe in completely. Maybe there is just motive behind it that I just can't stand on in my own conscience. And that's more so what led me there. From that list of breaking down what I like doing, what I'm good at doing, and such, I identified that I can find the best traits in people that I feel that others can see value in. And that's partly what EMR is we would drill down the unique characteristics in typically very complex or technical companies, software, but really B2B software companies is what we love working in. But we realize that those super complex technical ones, there's still typically a handful of people, a founder, and even a lot of times a salespeople that genuinely love the product for a bunch of obvious reasons that no one else understands, that's not properly represented anywhere. And once I could identify it, and I could identify who could benefit from that, it's game on. It's a marketer's dream. So we went from very broad, what we called shotgun approaches, to just trying to shoot everyone in the masses, to what we now call is like a sniper strategy, where we're handpicking 200-300 people a month that we know for a fact has a social profile or a profile that would match with who from our company or our client's company to that individual well emotionally, as well as we can solve a problem they have, because again, we pinpointed them for, we know you match someone we've already worked with, and we just pair them up. And again, I found that kind of a couple years back that was kind of a superpower of mine, is I understood it, I saw how to systematize it, and that's what I did.
I love that. So what do you think would have happened had COVID not happened? Like,
Yeah.
where do you think that ended?
Yeah, I think it forced not only me, but a lot of people to reconsider where they want to be, their priorities, allowed us to kind of slow down for a little bit and kind of not be so caught up in the rat race. And I think a lot of people will be further along in burnout or giving up on things. I mean, the end result, I feel like, always is kind of be inevitable. We're gonna burn it one way or another. We were forced to slow down, but either by our own choice or outside forces. But at least for me, that gave me time to do a reset and not dwell in the world of burning around me, but rather, how am I going to come through this? How will I succeed beyond this? How will I bring value to the world and others beyond me, that brings me satisfaction in what I do, and revolutionary for my business. And I think a lot of others that took that time to do self-development, like you mentioned too, I think it was just a perfect timing.
Yeah, but you didn't answer the question. What would have been the end game if COVID hadn't happened to you?
Burnout, but potentially burnout, but the question being what if that actually would have been, I don't know yet. I don't think I'll ever know. Would that be
Yeah.
continue to maintain where I was at and killing myself slowly because of it? I think at least for myself personally, um, and maybe a lot of others. I mean, I consume a lot of caffeine to keep the energy up, that crackhead energy and stuff like that. And we know what that kind of energy and stuff like that does to you long term, um, health wise and beyond. And I think it was very positive because it happened in
So
my personal life.
you didn't have some of these feelings, or at least at the conscious level, that you were burning out.
Yeah, I wasn't aware because I was moving so quickly. I felt like,
Yeah. Yeah, and I one of the things that I've struggled with myself is, a lot of the characteristics that we have that make us entrepreneurs and make us successful initially can, at a certain point in the business, become liabilities. And the fact that those character traits and skills or dispositions served us well and helped us be successful. It's a known quantity, right? It's hard to let those things go. The biggest one I had, which is I'm very persistent or stubborn, depending upon how you want to define it. Like, it's not when you start putting labels on it, it puts it in context, and it's either a positive or a negative. But this characteristic of mine is neither positive nor negative. It just is what I am. And I had a real hard time of letting go of the rope when it was time for me to let go of the rope. Like, you are not being successful in this role in the company. You've got to let somebody else do it. And it was strange because it's not that I hadn't turned other aspects of the business over to others and been comfortable with it. So it really wasn't like this fear of delegation or not having control.
mm-hmm.
It was, I didn't want to give up. Like it felt like quitting, right? Like that I couldn't solve this. And that was a big one for me to overcome.
I can relate. I can totally understand that. Yeah, that's a hard one, like you were mentioning with the personal development and really that internal dialogue that you kind of have to steer and push through and yeah, absolutely can resonate with that.
Well, I tell this story to people and they kind of look at me askance, but it's an example of this personality trait. I decided, I guess during COVID, I was going to get my private pilot's license. And it was something that I'd wanted to do since I was a teenager. And I was coming back on one of my cross-country solos, and I hit some turbulence. And I remember saying to myself, I mean, it was like, get me the fuck off this ride. Like, I do not want to be on this plane anymore. But then you realize, well, you're the only one that can put it down. So, buckle up and get it done. And I remember saying to myself, I'm never flying again. I'm going to get this plane on the ground and I'm never flying again. And I proceeded, after I landed, to finish my flight training, knowing that I didn't like to fly and had no intention of flying, right? But I couldn't quit. I could not walk away from it. And it's almost a pathology. Like, why would you continue spending money, spending time doing something you don't want to do just because you don't quit? It still doesn't make sense to me.
Yep. Oh, I totally get that. Yeah, that internal voice of saying that is not who I am. I don't quit. And I think it's the understanding, like you said, through evolving as a person and growing yourself, just identifying that, hey, quitting doesn't necessarily mean I'm not good at it, or don't align. It just probably means maybe this is not for me in this specific arena. And I think that's a thing that a lot of us have had to come to terms with, and enhancing the areas that you're strong at, and realizing, like you said, the areas that aren't for you necessarily anymore, and doubling down on the ones that work.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I can still hear my high school coaches saying, like quitting's a habit. Like
Yeah.
you quit, it just gets easier to quit. And that resonated with me because that's kind of like, who I was. But I think the most important thing that I learned from that was not just that specific attribute about me, was that we all have these beliefs, right? And virtually all of these beliefs have been given to us through experience and from others. You come out of the womb, you don't know anything, you don't believe anything. So,
Yep.
a lot of it comes from your parents and your siblings, and but you have these beliefs about everything, and the ability to separate your action from your belief. Like I'm doing this because subconsciously I believe XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to pull that XYZ up into your conscience and say, this is the reason why I'm doing this. This is the reason why I'm acting this way, saying this, whatever. And it doesn't have to be negative. I mean, it could be positive, but like holding that in your mind and say, okay, I believe this. And then saying, okay, can I set that belief aside to do something different? And it's absolutely possible, but you have to be willing to dig that out of the darkness of your subconscious, reflect on why you're behaving the way you're behaving, and ask those questions, which most people don't want to do that work.
Yep. Got to be okay with that outcome.
Do you have a similar experience?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with the methodology. I'm trying to think of an actual experience or moment that was pivotal like that. Man, there's quite a few that popped to mind quickly, but I'm trying to think like actually resonates with
Which
more
one
of
you can
a
let your wife
publicly.
hear?
Yeah, exactly. What's public
Sharing
out
with the
there?
public.
um, so having maybe it's a different the analogy. It works, but I'm just trying to think. Does it have the same outcome? But I want to point towards like some of this remote experiences we've done where we started exploring and traveling, and like I said, that's kind of where I really found myself further, was where I threw myself out in the middle of nowhere. Being we've traveled so much in a lot of these different remote places. Again, national parks is our favorite place.
Mm-hmm.
One idea specifically comes to mind. We spent a lot of time in Glacier National Park in Montana. If you know where that is, super remote,
Never been.
farthest parts out there. Never been. Yeah, super remote, most beautiful waters, mountains you'd ever imagine. And the beauty of it there is you are not the alpha out there as much as you want to be. Everything around you is capable of killing you with minimal effort. So it's a little humbling.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I enjoyed was when we go out there and we do some of these like longer hikes and explorations like that. And these are tens of miles in the middle of nowhere, and there's no one coming to get you. There's no one else around. I can recall being injured out there and being 15 plus miles out, and realizing that there's no one able to come get me from where I'm at, that I have to get myself kind of out of here. And
Were you by
like you mentioned,
yourself?
luckily I was not. I was with my wife, but
Okay.
this was one of the few times. This was actually the very first. I'm sorry, the second year that we had done it, and I had went lighter on preparation. And I did not bring. I got lazy. The best way to put it is I was in a hurry. I was impatient. To an extent, wife was a little delayed in the day, so we were getting going later. And I didn't do all my checks that I normally do. I'm usually very particular. This has to happen. This has to happen. I have to prepare for everything. And got out there, got injured, far out. It was late, sun setting, and if I recall correctly, someone can double check me on this, but pretty sure it was something like 3 grizzly bears were in every square mile of the entire national park at all times. And you're talking 1,000-pound animals that don't care, and hungry. And I remember thinking, it's like, okay, I put us in a worse situation because I rushed. I let something outside influence me, just being in a hurry and impatient, etc. And thinking I don't have a choice. I have to get myself out of here. And I can't also send my wife forward because something can happen to her, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. And long story short, from that, I knew I wasn't going to stop doing it. So I was trying to see how that relates to your flight one. But I knew I enjoyed doing it, but I promised myself at that moment that just like I mentioned the characteristics of just I don't quit on things. This is a situation. I can't quit because someone else depends on me. And I would never put myself in this situation again. And from that point forward, obviously positively, I'm here. It worked
You
out.
made it.
Um, but from that point forward, I had contingencies on contingencies on contingencies prepared that I wasn't going to ever allow that to happen because that was within my reason. I can prepare myself. I can educate myself. I can understand myself and I can understand the situations around me to the best of my ability and prepare for all of those. And again, trying to make sure it ties back in the fullest extent. But the non-quitting personality, I took that, identified why I felt that way. I felt probably like most that I didn't want to fail because I might let people down around me. And I wanted to make sure I never did that again. So I used that as an opportunity to say, hey, I will prepare and not skip a beat ever on these types of things. And then I took a lot of that energy and replicated that into my business. What do I absolutely need? Hiking, you don't want to carry everything, but you want to be prepared. What do I need to be prepared? What do I need to make sure I'm successful no matter what? And what gets me to the outcome, period, no questions asked. And that was kind of the mentality I brought into it. And yes, it took a lot of understanding of like what was causing these fears beyond just life and death if something decided to attack me. But a lot of it was just personal beliefs that I had put on myself that I thought everything else was more important. Time was more important than preparing and actually keeping life supported.
Yeah, no, I like to tell my team, there are no accounting emergencies. We're not dealing with life or death, and it's interesting when you put yourself in that crucible of life and death,
Mm.
the clarity that brings to mind,
Yep.
and you can't replicate it. We read a lot as our leadership team. We kind of have a book club, and currently we're reading
Nice.
Jocko Willnick's Leadership Strategies and Tactics. And of course, he's a former Navy SEAL, and all of his experiences are from a military perspective. But the reason why I like reading that type of stuff is because it is the crucible that has tested those things, right?
Yep.
There's no squishiness when people are shooting at you, and it's literally life and death. And I think that getting yourself out of the business periodically, I think 6 months out of the year is fantastic. But I'm assuming you're working some.
Yeah.
But this idea to step away from the business is where you really have the space to learn about yourself, because
Yep.
you don't when you're in it, you don't have the bandwidth to devote to developing any skills or learning anything else, because your full energy is on the task at hand, right? So it's kind of
Yeah.
like you got to go away and practice, if you will.
Yeah. I love that analogy. You're absolutely right. And I agree. I resonate with a lot of the military style books because of those absolutes, like you mentioned. It's life and death. There's no gray in the middle. If you make a mistake, you might be risking yourself and potentially others and
Hmm.
beyond. I mean, a nation as a whole, depending on what you're doing. And I actually recall the book as well. I did it as an audiobook a little while back, but absolutely agree with you on the thought process of it. It's I think a lot of us as business owners get caught up in that noise and that things are way more significant than they are, and we feel it's almost life and death, when in all reality, like you mentioned, probably is not.
No.
No, yeah.
It feels the same. It feels
Yep.
the same, right? But it's not the same.
Yeah. Yep. And getting that reality of being something out of the norm, flight, hiking, mountain biking, jumping out of the sky, doesn't matter. I think a lot of people can resonate in that space of saying, I have nothing else that distracts me. I have to, like you mentioned, the task at hand is the most important thing at the moment. And there's a kind of a peace that you can only find in that moment.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is why I take that time to develop those skills, develop that internal dialogue, and who's here between the skin and bones, obviously, and like you said, obviously working along the way. But yes, that's exactly the goal. Is I usually come back and like, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on today on this adventure and this hike,
Yeah.
and I want to think through this and then come back and then continue on with it the next time. And yeah, it's
Yeah,
really
and
empowering.
yeah, you have to have a rhythm. I mean, life has a rhythm. The universe has a rhythm, right?
Yep.
There's things that just exist and you're part of. And when you just grind in business, you're not acknowledging the rhythm. And the rhythm is that there should be a pause and there should be a time of rest and reflection, whether that's on a weekly basis or a quarterly basis or whatever. But you've got to have that space to do that reflection and thinking. Well, I recently took back up woodworking, and I'm not a woodworker. 10 years ago or so, I was looking for a butcher block for my kitchen, and I couldn't find anything that was worth buying, so I just decided to make my own. And last December, my daughter bought a house, and I'm like, I'll make her a butcher block like I had. Only I didn't go back and do what I'd done before. I picked out a new plan, and I mean, it has completely kicked my ass. I have screwed it up so many ways, except that I haven't screwed it up that I couldn't fix it. But my point is, it forces me to be comfortable with something that I'm not good at, which is a personality trait of mine that I'm like, if I'm not good at it, I don't want to do it. And that's not good. It's not that type of perfectionism is unhealthy. And so I forced myself into this situation where I'm doing something I'm not good at. I'm not skilled or experienced. But, there's frustration. I mean, like I blew up a couple of weekends ago and my wife was like, what? I thought you chopped off a limb with a power tool. I mean, like, no, I just screwed up. And, I had to sit there and think like, why am I letting this upset me so much? Right. But then at times I'll have these complete Zen moments where it's like time stops and but I guess my point is the exercise, putting myself in a situation that I don't normally do, shows me things more clearly than if I am doing things that I routinely do.
And do you see the crossover a lot of times? At least that's something I notice is like a lot of these, I would consider at times mundane tasks or activities or projects like this, like you're mentioning, is something that out of the norm, which I find myself in regularly as well, is when I learn something new. Do you see the crossover in different parts of your life where it's almost empowering and solves problems in other places? Like I find that regularly, I feel like.
Yes. I think like this project, I had to get a lot of new power tools. I did not realize that I did not have what I needed. And what the way that translated over was, like you have to make sure that you have all of the resources you need to be able to accomplish it. And you may not know what the resources are when you start out. Like you may have to learn along the way. And then you have to make a choice. Are you going to dedicate and commit to getting the additional resources to make it successful, or are you still going to try and do it without the proper resources and fail? I also have learned, like, there aren't a lot of unfixable mistakes, right?
Yep.
I mean, they're costly mistakes, but nothing, unless we're building a rocket or we're in the military, like, there's nothing that's critical. Like, you screw up something, it's not the end.
Yep, totally agree with you on that. I think it's just like you said, kind of coming to that piece of it's fixable, it's adjustable, recognizing when you're getting upset and being able to either take a break or and come back to it, or like recognizing that, hey, this is just a passing moment. This is just a flare up, and is something else bothering me. And I think as we evolve and develop, it helps.
Well, yeah, and I guess I would add that lesson. Like, when I blew up and I was reflecting on it, it was like, I'm putting pressure on myself. I got
Yeah.
I got upset because I had an end goal for that day. Like, I want to have this much of the project done at the end, and I was pushing myself towards the end, and I was tired, and I screwed up. And so
Yeah.
it's like, why put false requirements on yourself? Like, you make up these ideas that you need to be this far along, or this at this stage of the game in life, or, and it's like, says who? Like, why?
Yeah. Yep. I totally resonate with that. We get in our own heads a lot of times, and just slowing down, taking that break, and I mean, like you mentioned, the ultimate goal, it feels like at times, especially with us that want to strive for perfection, it feels like at times taking that break, slowing down, that's how you actually do it. You actually, it's small, gradual, 1% movements, but it's consistent movements, it's growth, versus getting caught up. And like you mentioned, you can make a mistake, and guess what? Now you have to go back 2, 3 steps because of that. By just taking a break, you can keep
Yeah.
that momentum. And that's something I've had to come to terms with, but actually be really empowering to realize that about yourself, that, oh, wow, if I just didn't let my head, my emotions get the best of me, I can slow down and keep making momentum. Slow, but it's working.
Yeah. Jim Collins, I think it was Good to Great. I think it was the sequel to that. He talked about the Arctic Explorer, and I don't remember his name, or if you've read the book, but there were two Arctic explorers trying to get to the North Pole in the 19th century, and the guy that made it, the other team froze to death, but the team that made it was very consistent in their incremental journey. They were going to go X miles a day, no more, no less. And so, like, when the weather was good, they'd want to push on, but they stopped. And then they had the reserves of energy to go push when the weather was bad to get to that daily goal. But it was more about that consistency in smaller steps trumps
Yep.
the leaps.
Yep. There's a bit of beauty that comes with that. As again, the self control required to say, I'm the type of person to switch that dialogue and say that I'm the type of person that I show up every single day. I'm not perfect every single day. I'm not going to make exponential growth every single day. And like you said, like jump ahead. But if I'm not doing that, what's the, you can look at it negatively and think, oh, I could have done more and I didn't. Or you can look at it and say, I didn't burn myself out for a future day that I might need these resources. And it's just a different way of thinking through it, and coming to terms with, I am the type of person that shows up every day and does what I said I'm going to do. Period.
Right.
It's all it has to be.
Yeah.
I love that thought process.
I just reread the War of Art. I can't remember the author's name.
Yeah.
And he was talking about his routine, and like he might work only 4 hours, but he showed up and he did the work every day, and it's like, And when he's done, and he can put it aside and say, just to your point, like, could I have gone further? Maybe, but that I was at the end. Like, I had given what I could today, and I'm okay with that.
Yep. Yeah, for me, that's been that's literally that book, which I absolutely love that you referenced that. That is one of the things that I've realized as well. I found that pattern was that perfectionist side wants to always seep out, and I also recognize that that's what causes things like burnout or rash decisions that end up blowing up in your face and things like that. And those slow, steady wins every single day was more impactful to what I did than anything else. Just being okay with that with myself and giving myself that peace um, was really powerful. It's kind
Yeah,
of an art you have to kind of learn.
yeah. Like when I blew up a couple of weekends ago on the woodworking project, I had cut the notch in the wrong end of the post,
Oh no.
and my immediate thought was, I've got to rebuild this whole post. I didn't, and that was my reaction, and that's why I got upset. And I was also heaping, like, how could you be so stupid? Like, I mean, it just seemed dumb to me that I had made that mistake, right? And thinking about it, if I could have not reacted and just fast forwarded to the contemplative state of, like, okay, what can I do to fix this? And I came up with a pretty simple solution. I mean, it wasn't rocket science. I came up with it, for God's sake. But, you know, to me, it's like when I have those emotional reactions, when I get upset about something, and I used to, when I was younger, I would get upset a lot more frequently than I do now. Like, I don't remember having a blow up like that in I mean, at least a year. I really don't remember the last time I had. And so, you know, when you feel those feelings and those reactions, you need to pay attention to them because they're telling you something about yourself. It is not normal to scream at a piece of wood, right? Like, it's not normal. There's something else going on, right? So, you know, if any of you out there are struggling with your emotions, you know, tune into them. Don't suppress them. Lean into it. Like, well, okay, why am I feeling this way?
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Well, I'm glad you agree with me. Brandon, how do people find out more about you or Falconics?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me basically on any social channels under Brandon Falcon. Very simple there. Falconics, same concept. You can visit our website, falconics.com, or any of our social channels. We're readily available and like to communicate on there. Like I said, like how you hear me communicate now and the friendliness, our entire staff embodies that. We are people first and a business second. And yeah, would love to communicate in the emotional realms of business. If that's something that someone's interested in, feel free to reach out and let's conversate.
Yeah, every time you say your name, I want to hear this screeching falcon sound. Like, I need to. Maybe I'll work this into the edits and put it in.
I would love that.
Yes, that would be good. Listeners, we'll have those links in the show notes. If you like what you heard, please share the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, rate the podcast. Until then, remember, you are not alone.